Hello everybody, welcome back to another video on Fantastic Talks, bringing you back another Dragon Ball discussion video for you guys today, and returning with me on this video is Scourge and Tim.
Yo.
It has been quite some time, boys, hasn't it?
It has been.
Good few months. Yeah.
What did we last talk about?
I think it was Daima. It was the Daima review we did
yes.
just before you went off to Japan.
Was it really that?
Yeah.
No way.
Genuinely, I remember that was the last video we did together.
Wow,
So
that is crazy.
yeah, and we thought we would come back together to do a new type of discussion of sorts. We've been meaning to do for a while. We're thinking about doing it, and might be a start of a new series we want to do. Maybe. We'll see how this goes. It depends if you guys want to see more. We thought it would be a really good idea. So obviously this isn't about a new game discussion or anything like that. We know there's a new game that's been announced.
Yeah.
We don't really care enough to talk about it. Like I know it's like Genkashin Squadron or whatever, and some characters have been really cool on that, but that's not what we're here to talk about, unfortunately. We want to talk about Z versus Super.
If people want us to do a video on that, though, we can.
We can.
Comment.
When there's a lot more stuff revealed, I think
It's in early days, right?
It's still early days. Baby base is kind of cool to see, but
cool.
Yeah, if you can.
I might do a separate discussion on that another time, or we'll come back together another time for that. But for now, we're going to talk about Z versus Super, a beginning of a series of videos we want to do. Because obviously, we're always going on about like Z and Super in our previous videos all the time. We're always somehow like comparing the stories every time we talk about like superhero or like how Super
in the
works in
superhero
general.
Commentary.
Like
we discussed the film.
When we were reviewing superhero,
it slipped into there. It slipped into a bunch of other videos too. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So why not just do a whole dedicated video?
To what made Super
different from Z.
Different from Z in terms of story, progression, animation, character development,
How does
all
it
that.
weigh up?
And hopefully,
Does Super live up to the legacy of Goku?
Does
Not
it-
the game.
Not the game.
Not the game.
Legacy-
No.
legacy of
And to
Z.
be precise, we're talking about anime Super, not manga Super.
Because that's a whole. We could do a whole other video on anime versus manga Super.
Yeah,
That's
Because
true.
that
they
could be
are-
a good idea.
They're different enough.
And we could also have the opportunity to do Battle of the Sequels sort of thing in future, depending if you guys want to see more of us, like Super versus GT or Daima versus GT or Super versus Daima, that sort of thing. But we thought it would be a good start to talk about Z versus Super
Yes.
and what we think of it. And I'm going to thank Tim for this video because it was kind of you that kind of started this off for us, and I thought this would make a really good video for us to do.
I just noticed it kept coming up in our commentaries, and just like maybe one day we should actually.
Because we were talking about
get our thoughts together.
We were talking about it off screen like a few weeks ago,
Yeah.
and you were saying about, oh, you know what? I actually don't think Super's that great. I think Z was better. And I thought, you know what?
Yeah.
Hold that thought.
Weird thing
That
is
could be a good thing to talk
out
about.
of the three of us, I'd say that you're the super apologist most of the time.
Yeah.
I fucking despise it. You are right in the middle.
Yeah.
We are literally
Yeah.
all three aspects. You've now suddenly shifted, which is quite shocking.
It is, yes.
So that's why
That's what I thought would be quite interesting to talk about, because you liked Super for the most part.
I
for a
did
bit.
like Super, and I still do like Super.
Same.
And we know there's some people out there watching this that probably have the same views as us as well. So
But that's what I like talking about Supers, because it's so contentious, and it's such a there's such a wide array of highs and lows that is really not just a yes or no question as to whether or not it's good, it's bad, is it better, is it worse. And
There's factors.
yeah, there's so many factors, including when you got the series that came before it, which was GT, and very recently the Daima, you know, the battle of the sequels, you know, the ones that came after, which is better, because
That's
you know,
a whole nother discussion.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's seemingly they can't even exist all in one timeline.
yeah, because some of it, all three of them keep contradicting each other
Exactly, for
to
a
fit in the
number of
timeline.
reasons, so-
yeah.
How do we want to start?
Especially how some of the movies have retconned a few things too.
How the heck do
Like,
we want to start talking about this?
It's just hard to where to start. Like, do we start with saying Saga compared to the first Saga of Super? Or
I think it'd
do
be
we
fair to start with...
Do we do story then animation, or are we just gonna be back and forth?
I don't know.
It's gonna be difficult to
The
talk
only
about.
place I could think to begin talking would be when Battle of Gods got announced.
Yeah.
Huge
do you know
drought
what?
of Dragon Ball in general.
Battle of Gods was like the big return, wasn't it?
Yes.
Like, I know we had like Goku and his friends return before that, but that was kind of like a
Special.
random OVA special.
Yeah. When Battle of Gods happened, it was like, okay, wait, this is a new piece of story. we didn't even know if it was going to be canon, and they were
Yeah.
like, "Oh no, it's canon.
Yeah.
There's a new Super Saiyan form in it." So this was all really huge at the time.
Yeah.
But I think that back then, even when we watched Battle of Gods, we didn't think it was gonna
snowball.
No.
No.
It seemed like its own one and done thing.
One of the things that was come back.
We weren't sure if it was going to continue into anything.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think they did either.
No. I think even with that, we kind of...
It was the first first Dragon Ball movie to come out in cinemas, wasn't it? I don't remember any of the previous ones come out.
Not internationally.
No.
Japan has Dragon Ball movies.
Not like
pretty much all of them. I think almost all of them.
Mm.
What? Even the original animated ones?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think in Japan, but I think internationally, yes, I think it's the first film that hit.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
I could
okay,
be
wrong. Yeah.
They could have been screenings of.
There have been since
Yeah.
internationally screenings of
Yeah,
films, but
there could have been other screenings in America.
it was a big special thing, Battle of Gods. And as far as how the story went into Super, well, Resurrection F and then into Super,
Yeah.
I don't know if they had like a whole plan in place. I think they set some groundwork with Battle of Gods.
So,
I think
okay.
Battle of Gods was a experiment.
Yeah.
Battle of Gods was an experiment to see how much people wanted to see a Dragon Ball return after GT supposedly ending that franchise the way it ended.
It's weird to think about now.
Yeah, like it really is with everything we've got now. And what I mainly wanted to talk about is because obviously we've spoken about, and I think it's been like said in the past from like online on the internet and stuff, that the whole idea of Dragon Ball and Z or Dragon Ball as a whole was never even planned, or it was made up as it went along, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like a lot of series.
Akira Toriyama never had a goal how he wanted to take it further.
Because
there were certain sagas where it was meant to end, but then it continued.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware.
But somehow it worked.
Yeah, the most that I know is that he only fought up until the end of that individual arc.
That's not what I heard for... I heard that he had a plan up to Frieza.
Frieza, yes.
Yeah.
So that's 2 arcs.
Yeah.
So Saiyan and Frieza were planned, but then from then on...
It was winging it.
It was winging it.
Arc by arc.
Arc by arc.
Yeah.
Which...
I would still argue is more foresight than one movie of Battle of Gods.
Yes.
You know, that's just
At
one
least
individual film.
Z felt planned, even though not all of it was planned.
Not all of it was.
It was still very consistent,
cohesive.
precise, and it worked well for the most part. I think each arc blended well to the next.
It did. I'll give it
to
that.
what it was setting up, in my opinion.
Well, I'm trying to compare
Compared
it
to Super, I don't know.
I would agree with that up until the end
Nothing
of Cell.
kind of felt rushed in Z.
There was a big time skip after that, though. They had to
There
do
was,
something
but there
else.
was nothing in Boo Saga that really related to beforehand, other than there were Saiyans on Earth. And
Yes. Yeah. Booze was a whole new thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I didn't mind.
Which,
though.
it still kind of worked.
It did kind of work. It gave us some of the best fights.
I figured that in Z it was fine to end it on that, on something new, because Saiyan Saga was about Goku and origins and histories. Going into Frieza, it was about that, still Saiyans.
Finding out its original,
Yeah,
what
we're
happens
learning,
to
we're
Saiyans.
learning.
Yeah.
Cell then was a big throwback to the Red Ribbon Army.
Yeah.
So Boo was just like, something completely different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is new.
Very
Yeah.
different.
But it still added development for certain characters,
Yeah.
and Vegeta's was the big one.
Yeah.
You know,
But also removed development for certain other characters.
yeah,
That's also true.
yeah. Unfortunately, but
So
still,
what's the trade-off? This is turning into a Z versus Z commentary.
Yeah.
Well, we'll talk about some Super then.
But yeah.
Let's talk about some of them arcs.
I still think Z handled its arcs better than Super did. We all know. We have all agreed on this. I feel like.
Super's arcs don't feel like arcs, some of them.
Yeah.
Like the Battle of Gods arc doesn't feel like an arc to me.
Well, yeah, this is the interesting thing. Another interesting thing, like Super was already for us. Super was already. It had a roughest of rough starts.
Yeah.
The decision to redo the Battle of Gods film, which no one
asked
wanted.
for. Battle of Gods was so perfect.
Yeah.
And Resurrection F.
I don't know why you, considering it was, as I said, the experiment. It was the Kickstarter to everything. It did that well that it revived a franchise that had been dead for 2 decades at this point.
Yeah.
At least in terms of animation, the games were obviously a different thing.
Yeah.
So the decision to redo it to a budget
Make a
very-
shitter version.
was very
Yeah.
bizarre.
So I mean, 'cause-
and then the animation came out, and the first episode, or first few episodes, the animation was
It was bizarre, yeah. It
It
was so
was
stiff
bad.
and stale.
very
Like
bad.
it was shocking for a Dragon Ball project.
Somebody looked at
Yeah.
Battle of the Gods and was like, "They want this ass. There's not enough fucking cruise ships. Not enough cruise ships in this
Yeah.
film."
Yeah,
Right?
then there was
Redo
just,
it.
It's what, yeah, they redid the whole. Well, the movie was still the same, but like the fights were different. They tried to make the fights last longer, which I didn't mind.
They added a bit to like Beerus's introduction.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
they were fighting more in space and like
Yeah.
shaking the universe and all that. But it's
they
like
gave Beerus a bit more. They gave him more of a move set.
yeah,
I guess I could say with the purple and thing.
but I just
But,
felt
but there was a lot of decisions that were clearly made. Oh, we're gonna make this different for the sake of being different.
some bits just felt downgraded compared to the movies,
Absolutely.
especially Resurrection F. Resurrection F, I felt like had no change. I've always said that would have been the perfect opportunity to make Vegeta have the win
Yeah.
instead of Goku.
We've said this.
But we've said
We'll be
yeah, we've said this.
saying a lot of things that Super could have done and they dropped the ball on.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
will be a recurring thing in this talk.
Oh yeah.
Quickly, fight Battle of Gods as well. The Super decided to have, the Goku versus Beerus fight. Planets were disintegrating far off galaxies
Yeah.
because of their fight.
Shockwaves.
Exactly, which
Never gets brought up again.
never gets brought up again, and it's very bizarre because I thought shockwaves, they dissipate as they go out, not get stronger.
Yeah.
So surely it's for closer by planets that would be blowing up, not the furthest away ones.
It was some mental gymnastic bullshit they had to do
Yeah.
to try and get
And also-
to.
Yeah.
But they knew that was the start of a series. I'm all up for starting off a series in a big way.
Yeah.
But if this is Dragon Ball and power levels, if that's even a thing,
Mean anything at all.
if they
Yeah.
mean anything, then you're gonna have to escalate from there.
Yeah.
Why
Which
would
for
you
sure-
start with that?
Why
Yeah.
would you start with that from a place that
Like
is
they
so?
started introducing rules like these shockwaves and Beerus's power level. Let's not
Yeah.
even get started on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like they had no idea where they were going to take it from here. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
So how is it that the experimental movie,
Was more complete and
Yeah.
safe.
and just more?
I mean, even in the
Concise.
movie that he teased about, universes and all that.
Yeah.
So I
The
feel like they
only-
had a plan for that.
That was fine.
Yeah.
Like-
could have left it there.
Yeah.
The only thing the movie got wrong, was Beerus saying that he was fighting at 80% power,
Yes.
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
means that Goku only needed to make a couple of small extra steps to beat Beerus.
Which by that logic would mean that Blue Kaioken should be able to beat Beerus.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's
Which,
bullshit.
Yeah.
which just isn't.
It's
Which
just
isn't-
not true.
Yeah, it's just not true. It's not feasible. Actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As much as I would love to
But it's
see
what
a
he,
Goku versus
that's
Beerus
what he trained himself to do, though.
Yeah.
When he revealed it.
It was
in
best to not
Universe
mention power
6.
levels.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Or numbers. Don't bring numbers
No.
into Dragon Ball anymore.
No.
It doesn't work. And I think that was probably one of Z's biggest problems.
Well, that's the thing, yeah. Z's
'Cause
power
Z-
levels were all over the place because you had Super Saiyan 3 shake the earth. Even Goku, even Nappa shook the earth when he power up. And I'm
Yeah.
like, how the hell? You know?
Those two are not comparable.
No.
Yeah.
And if you bring numbers back into it, Frieza's second form, my power level was at 1 million.
Yeah.
It's like, okay. And then several arcs later, we have... Who was it? It was Resurrection F, wasn't it? It was Resurrection F. Frieza was like, I think I get my power level to 4 million or something
4
like that.
billion
Yeah.
or something?
Yeah, it wasn't
1.2,
billion,
yeah.
surely.
So it was something million.
Fuck these numbers.
And I was
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah.
well, that means you're only 4 times stronger than your second form back in Namek,
Yeah.
which is
The numbers are
The
ridiculous.
numbers, I think, is what ruins it.
Not
So,
ridiculous.
which was a Z problem.
yeah.
So that's a downgrade.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a down
That
point
is
to
true.
draw.
That is a con from Z, I think.
Yeah.
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 Like, because then it screws up what
It
comes
did
later.
stop caring later on. Z.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the Boo saga. It
But I
stopped
feel like even Z's power levels, how villains and characters progressed, it did feel right. Like it made sense to how the next villain became stronger than the villain they fought previously, and how they got stronger as Super Saiyans, that sort of thing.
I mean, ish, bro. Like honestly, I'm not even gonna. I wouldn't go that far because like how they're stronger than the main characters, and what level
Yeah.
they're at. Really, I mean, the androids just came out the pod strong.
Yeah.
Same with Cell. He was like, "Look, check me out. I was made this way. Maybe I was
Cell
born this way."
Cell was experimented.
Yeah, but
he's
I-
created with the power levels.
But I find it very difficult to believe that the Emperor of the Universe was weaker than a human with some.
They made some adjustments.
Yeah, with
human shit on Earth.
Yeah.
Dr. Gero was a smart man.
He was a smart guy.
He was a smart man,
genius.
Oh, yeah.
but the Emperor
and he
of the Universe.
he managed to grab Frieza's cell
They still
when Frieza
have
was on
to
Earth.
make some bullshit for it to make sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Cell I can understand a little more because it's like a hodgepodge of everyone's DNA.
Yeah,
That's more
Yeah,
believable.
makes more sense.
Yeah. So
I'll give Cell a pass.
Yes.
But the androids, not really.
because they are just modified humans, which is a little ridiculous to think about.
Yeah.
But we always accepted it.
Because it was kind of cool.
It is cool.
The androids somehow surpassed all their power levels, and they have no energy.
I know.
There was something like fucked up about it that you didn't mind.
I don't mind
it kind of worked.
Even now, I just think that the reasoning, like you said, is still a little bit of bullshit. I guess.
I just don't think it makes sense for an android to go up against a god's power level like Blue. So we all have that thing about Super versus Blue.
But before Super,
because
Super Saiyan was god level.
yeah.
That was the closest thing we had to like a deity
We've
in
had this.
Dragon Ball.
Yeah. Because it was a legend. It was a legendary form.
Yeah. To say that, to even like in Z terms, to say that a human with some mechanical parts included is stronger than a pre-prophesized deity of an advanced alien race is ridiculous.
It is a little bit.
So are we safe to say that power levels, even in Super and Z, is like the big con here?
I think Super has a few egregious moments with its power levels.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
think we can all agree with that.
Yeah.
But Z's has quite a bit as well.
But Z can get away with it because of how its progression of power levels works. I don't know.
I don't think so.
I'm still trying to think that all the.
I think Super is just way too all over the place.
But I think that
we had a whole arc in Z of nonsense power levels with the Zenkai boosts.
Considering Kefla and all that, we'll get to that later. I don't want to go too far ahead here, but
the big reason that I wanted to do this commentary was to highlight the fact that yes, Super has a lot of problems, but
you mainly want to talk about the story, didn't you?
I do want to talk about
the stakes.
But I want to. But right now, since we're on the subject of it, I want to highlight that yes, Super had a lot of problems, but we cannot pretend that those problems started and ended in Super.
Yeah.
They were very much present in Z.
Yes.
Like,
I would say.
I think Z was a bit more subtle about it. I feel like.
I think we've just forgotten because of time.
I would say there were still some that were in your face. I've said this a million times, but like Piccolo going from like second form Frieza level to just under Super Saiyan with some like training in between.
Yeah.
You know, when you go from him and then fighting like Gero and the androids, that's a little bit crazy when you think about that.
Yeah, but the fact that you got to remember, Piccolo was only half a man.
Yeah.
Like when he fused with Kami, he was already like.
I know,
just
but this was
just above Super Saiyan
This
level,
was pre-Kami.
almost.
Yeah, when he fused with Kami, he was actually like post Super Saiyan level, I would say.
Yeah,
Well,
like he was strong.
the strongest.
At that point.
He was considered. He was almost a god by that
And
point.
I'm trying to think of other bullshit things with like agreed stupidity that they've done. Oh, it like Cell's. I came back stronger because of Goku's cells. I blew
The
myself
Saiyan
up.
cells, because
But he blew himself up.
doesn't matter.
But
Yes, it does.
It still works.
No, Zenkai boosts only work if someone else does it. That's why Vegeta
Oh, yeah,
asked
yeah, yeah.
Krillin to
Oh,
do
yeah,
it
yeah.
to him.
Yeah, yeah.
Remember, he said, "I can't do it to myself. You need to do it."
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Cell
right.
should have been able to blow himself up, regenerate, blow himself up, regenerate, and just keep getting stronger.
Yeah, but-
It's such horseshit. You know what I mean?
It's the ultimate life form. He breaks
bullshit.
that. He defeats that
But
trope.
that's no. Come on, you can't say
I
that.
can let it go because it's Cell. He's an android.
No.
He's a modified being.
Okay,
in a
this
lab,
is the other thing.
Maybe Jiro somehow works
Like,
that
Boo
somehow
I
to
can
modify
get.
that.
Boo was ridiculous in the end.
Yeah.
Because you can't. Because what they're doing is that they're establishing a well-known. Sorry, they have established a well-known rule that a Saiyan can get stronger once near death.
Yeah.
Right. Then they established an add-on to that rule. It cannot be self-inflicted. For Cell to then do that.
Just fuck that rule.
But wasn't that same kind of
Because
late
if they
in Super though?
if
Later.
If
not in Z.
they said,
There wasn't a limit to that till later on.
later on?
Super introduced a limit. But what I'm saying is, if it was stated that Cell had his own Zenkai boost, Like he could self-inflict pain and make himself stronger. That would make sense. But because it was specifically pointed out that it was because of his Saiyan cells that did it, it doesn't make any sense that it could work.
So that's some horseshit, as far as I'm concerned.
I don't know. I agree to disagree, but fair enough.
I can say that's lazy writing.
Yeah.
But, you know, he literally reversed the Zenkai boost. That's not what the Zenkai boost is, you know what I mean?
It's the ultimate life form.
So you can't just say that.
He can do it. He can do it with the ultimate life form.
Like,
So
I think that C had its few instances of bullshittery.
Yeah.
Super definitely has them as well.
Super, I think, just handled it worse.
I think Super's just has a case of having characters come out of nowhere that just are strong without any explanation behind it. Like
Yeah.
Jiren.
I will
training.
I will defend you.
I know, it's because he just said, I trained.
Because
I trained, yeah.
but that's exactly what Piccolo's done.
That's fine. Really, when you
Piccolo
think
trains
about
like
it,
mad, and that's
when
how
you
he's got
think about it,
stronger.
that's a totally acceptable answer. Of course it is. This is
Yeah.
Dragon Ball. People train.
Yeah.
And they get strong.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
really, nothing's wrong with Jiren. Hit's kind of egregious.
Well, he has one of the most broken abilities.
Yeah.
Apart from the time stop, I just think Hit's like, I'm constantly improving. And he just like, I'll make myself stronger now.
Yeah.
Never mind. Wait, stronger again.
Yeah.
How are you doing this?
Yeah.
What exactly is going on inside your body that is making you do this?
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
There's a lot of... There was the other fact, since we're talking about Hit, like his great advantage was his time skip.
Yes.
We have a character several arcs
Guldo,
in the
yeah.
past.
Well, it's not.
Guldo.
Guldo's
that
wasn't
hasn't got a limit on it.
Was that actually a time stop, Guldo's thing? Or was it just like he freezes you with his psychokinesis?
I was going to say, I thought, yeah, because he can only do that for so long.
I
He
thought
had
it
to
was
hold
his
breath.
mind. Like,
But he had to hold his breath all the time.
right.
I'm
But
pretty
he
sure.
but he still had to. Like, that's holding your breath is still a lot longer than for 1 second that he can do.
Yeah, Hit has like a second or two, doesn't he? And he's like,
That's what I mean. I feel like Guldo's is a bit more of a time limit. Hits
No,
can just
Hit-
improve it.
Yeah, but hits is a second. I can hold my breath for more than a second.
Yeah,
Not
I know,
show
but,
off.
like, Hit, if Hit could just suddenly just improve himself like that, then he could just improve himself.
But he's
for
improving his
a second
power
more.
level, not
He
his
did.
time skip.
I don't
He
know.
did.
Did he improve his time
He
skip?
did.
That's what he did.
Several
I was
times.
going to say.
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
Alright, fair enough.
that's what I mean.
It's
So,
wacky.
Yeah.
Somehow.
We just go with it. Zamasu, another one was like pre-Super Saiyan 2 level when Goku first fought him, and then when we next saw him, he was randomly like as strong as blue.
Yeah,
I was like, okay.
that's what I don't get. It's-
Yeah.
I can kind of agree with that. On the basis that Zamasu is slowly getting more used to Goku's body.
No. I mean base Zamasu.
Oh, base Zamasu.
Based on it, yeah.
He went from fighting like Super Saiyan 2 on the Kai World, and then when we next saw him, he was fighting blue. He was throwing hands, and I'm like, how?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
you are
And this
correct,
is
yes,
this is a Kai.
I
you
guess
know,
he
like-
just trained with Goku Black, off screen. They never mentioned this. It
No,
sounds like
this is meant to be before he meets Goku Black though. When Geeks
no,
fought
this is
Goku.
when they showed up together in the future.
Oh.
They started fighting. He was fighting. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
They were all over the place. This sounds like nitpicking and stuff. It's just I think Z had a better understanding of like what form should be stronger than what thing.
Yeah,
You know what I
that's
mean?
what we're trying to explain. Like I feel like the way they handled like what power level goes up against another power level
Yeah.
works better in Z.
In Super, people just kind of get stronger all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Whoa! And then everybody was all over the
I
place.
just didn't think it made sense for Goku Super Saiyan 2 to even be in Super because
Nah.
if these are godlike characters they're fighting, what's the point of using Super Saiyan forms anymore when they can use God and Blue?
Z has a
Goku can handle himself okay as base form.
yeah. Z has a much better advantage in the fact that it had fewer forms to pick from.
Yeah.
It only puts them in Super for fan service, I think, now.
Yeah. Let's not forget, I remember when, just going back to Battle of Gods, I remember when that was first announced, we all wanted the next Super Saiyan form to be Super Saiyan 4, or some version of it. That was the idea.
Yeah.
Like, and
It
then it
was
turned
the
out to be
idea.
another hair colour, and then that's
Yeah.
when that... But the idea of Super Saiyan God felt unique at the time.
I think God's
and then it got
fine.
redundant. Yeah.
God's fine. Even blue is acceptable. I understand they were like, okay, let's stop doing hair shapes and do hair colours.
Yeah.
That's okay. I get that. It's ran dry now, obviously. We've literally ran out.
And I know, and again, Super has ruined a few things to what made Z's story so special, because one thing I still don't like what they've done, a few things actually. Obviously, one of the main things in Super is that, I mean, Z kind
Are
of...
we moving to story now? Sorry.
yeah, a little bit. Z, I'm sure we'll go back to characters later.
power level.
Z, I mean, mainly like towards the end of Cell Saga or during the Boo Saga, stakes were no longer a thing. So even when people died, the Dragon Balls were there to bring them back to life, no matter how many times they died.
Yeah.
Because then they changed how it worked. So that kind of ruined the stakes a little bit.
A problem that still persists.
Yeah. Because now in Super,
they've got an extra set of Dragon Balls.
An extra set of Dragon Balls that defeats everything because, like, we knew Tournament Power wasn't going to end in a shit way because they were going to come back to life.
Yep.
Even the Zamasu arc felt redundant because I don't know. I guess it was the way that arc was handled.
I think Zamasu was a little bit better off because the Dragon Balls weren't a thing in that universe. Zamasu had already dealt with that in that timeline, I should say.
Yeah.
The stakes were only as far as Trunks' future was concerned. I don't think anyone was really concerned about the present day stuff. So, but because it was, to be fair, Super was pretty fucking clever with the Goku Black arc because it put it centered.
That's the only time it was stakes.
Yeah, and it centered the focus on Trunks, a character that was already established.
Yeah.
A character that was very beloved.
Yeah.
At the time. And we already as a fan base, everyone already really loved Trunks.
And the idea,
and they just wanted him to succeed.
I liked the idea of an evil Goku returning because obviously the last time we had that was Turles
doing an evil Goku was full on fan fiction. That got us excited.
But we were hoping that was actually going to be a Goku.
Yes,
like,
Trunks coming back was
Zamasu as Goku.
I think we all agree that future Trunks coming back was a great idea.
Oh yeah,
for Super.
100%.
We are glad that happened.
Yeah, and he had like a post-apocalyptic future again.
Yes.
Like worse than the androids.
Yeah.
So which I thought was kind of cool, and I'm like,
it was a fun spin on it rather than him going back to the past as Goku and Vegeta going to the future.
To the future.
Yeah. But
there was a bit too much
back and forth.
Yeah.
It's just a shame that the ending of it sucked, and Zamasu's reasoning sucked to why he became who he became.
To a degree. So I think Zamasu's reasoning was okay. I mean, I've said before, I'm kind of bored of the whole...
I loved the idea of an evil Kai. I loved the idea of that. I'm bored. I've said before, I'm bored of the idea of the malevolent, wannabe god character. Yeah.
That I am right because I am.
Yeah.
That kind of mentality. I'm really bored of that. But I liked Zamasu in the way that I do like an evil Kai, and I do like the idea that he was already in a position of godhood, so it kind of makes a bit more sense, but then doesn't have time at the same time because he wasn't like high up in the climax. I'm very torn with him.
He didn't have much development to be able to feel any sympathy for him for why he did what he did.
I think was fine.
Yeah.
And showing he had access to certain tools that he could use to get evil if he wanted to.
But why was his reasoning over the fact that he just saw a bunch of barbarians bullying each other?
That's the only thing that ruins it.
You know what he should have done? He should have just looked at the androids.
Yeah, he should have just looked at Earth.
If they we've said this before. If they
looked at the Saiyans, what they've done in the past.
Spent a bit more time with Zamasu.
Yeah.
With just us with him.
Yeah.
Maybe he travels the universe.
Yeah.
Sees a lot of fucked up shit.
Sees all the war that's going on in space. The Frieza's army,
and it just breaks him or something. But like, if you gave him more of a reasoning, like he really did try and insert himself into cultures and help them, and then it kept fucking up over and over. It broke him. I could maybe believe that he just went off the deep end.
Yeah.
And then he'd become this like tragic villain that it might be one of the best villains we've ever had.
Yeah.
But what we got was just lame, you know?
Yeah.
He was just whiny.
Yeah.
Every time he spoke. And his dialogue was awful.
I know.
His dialogue was absolutely awful. I would say worse than Ribrianne at certain
His
points.
dialogue did drag too much.
So bad, and it's a problem that carries on in Sparking Zero. He's easily got the longest introduction when you play as him, and it's just like, what?
He was like that in Fighters. When you pick him, he still had such long intros.
It is.
Is that just a trope for him now?
I don't know. I don't know if it's like an inside joke. That they're just like, we're just going to make him the most annoying character possible, which is such a shame because he had the biggest hype of any Dragon Ball.
Oh, yeah.
I think since maybe the inevitable return of Black Frieza.
Super...
Because he does have some interesting attacks when you play as him in games. Like, he's probably the most unique
He's got a great
looking
moveset.
villain. Yeah,
Aside
especially when he fuses.
because we focus heavily on one character, I've noticed in these commentaries.
Yeah,
we love talking. No, it's fine. I was going to say that the thing that Super does that's most egregious to me is that it does what Z couldn't, obviously. Z set the rules. Super takes those rules and fucks you up the ass with them.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Because obviously we have that annoying rule of the fusion.
Yeah.
Super completely fucks up that rule.
They destroyed Potara in
Yeah.
Super, and I'll never forgive them for it.
It's what made that fusion so unique
I'll
compared to
never forget- I'll
normal
never get
fusion.
over it,
Yeah,
yeah.
like
I don't see any
You
plus
looked
from
at me.
that. I don't see if you're about to find a plus in that. I can't. Like,
and now obviously
Okay, so
Super defeats a point now with Gogeta's now just as strong as Vegito. Even
Yeah.
though Potara fusion was meant to be stronger than normal fusion.
but I still can't agree that this is a Super only problem. It happened in Boo. Potara Fusion just stopped, and they just blamed it on we're inside Boo.
that's fine.
That I can believe that though.
I was fine with that.
Like-
yeah, they
He even explains that. Maybe there's some stuff inside Boo's
they
body.
said
We don't
that.
know what
Yeah,
Boo.
they actually used those words.
So
Yeah.
why didn't Gotenks immediately defuse when he was absorbed?
I think he did.
No, he didn't.
He didn't.
No,
Not
not.
immediately.
No, because
Yeah.
But he was the fusion was due to run out.
it was due to run out because
Like-
it was on a time limit.
Yeah.
Like
Like-
Potara would be.
No, hold on. They're saying specifically. They said specifically something interfered with the Potara, which means that something in Boo's body
What
messed
does
with
that
the
mean?
earrings.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what does that mean?
Their earrings, right?
Yeah.
So it means that the Metamoran fusion wasn't affected, but the Potara fusion was.
Yeah.
That's all we know. The
There is-
magic of the Potara earrings or
Yeah.
something was affected by
So
that.
the God fusion
Yeah.
failed instead of the normal alien fusion.
Because it was up against Boo's weird magical shit.
Yeah.
Right? The problem
I
is
believe
This is
that.
copium.
it's copium, but they established that it was still permanent, except in that instance. And then Super came along and said, you know what, we'll fix that by just making it not permanent. And I'm like, that's not fixing
You
it.
could have just had that.
They
be,
didn't fix it.
You could have just had that have been.
You made it worse.
Because that could have been a Universe 7's strict Potara rule
Yeah, but
and keep it like permanent. You could have, if they had had like Goasu say like, oh no, in this universe Potara doesn't do that.
sure.
Yeah, but it's
if
still,
they-
it's
if they'd
still
have done
universe,
that,
but it was
maybe.
still Universe 7.
What do you mean?
Vegeta in Super Saiyan.
Oh, it was. It was
There's
in
still
the Universe
Universe
7. Yeah, it was in
It's
the
just in
Universe
the
7.
future.
Yeah, but their Potarians was from Goasu, wasn't it?
we're just meant to assume
Oh,
the
yeah.
same.
Goasu gave his
Yeah.
Potarian to
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
didn't
We
he?
would surely
So-
can assume they are all the same
Yeah.
between universes.
Yeah.
Unless stated otherwise.
I'm just trying to retcon the way this
But
was.
I
Like,
actually
my
agree
head
with
canon.
you.
Do you know what I mean?
do actually agree with you. That would have been a better idea. Goasu just gave him his earrings as like, what, yours last forever? I don't fucking do that.
I don't
Yeah.
see why
Yeah,
any of
right?
those are a good idea.
Yeah,
Why couldn't he
like-
just stay fused?
Because it would have.
It wouldn't have worked for the progression of Super.
It would have been a
No.
headache.
I'm saying just for an episode or two. He goes home in the time machine as Vegito, and then when they get back, they get the Dragon Balls and defuse it.
Oh yeah, because it's
They said the Dragon Balls would work.
yeah,
the
the Dragon was
Namekian
work, but
ones,
it's the fact. Yeah, because Supreme Kai could be so
They could have
confused.
just stayed Vegeta, met their wives, had a funny moment and shit. You know.
Yeah, I think I think the bit you're getting pissed off from, which I understand because I was the same,
Yeah.
is the fact that Vegito defused the same way Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta defused because it was such a short time limit.
Yeah, they tried to say that the key burned it out.
Yeah,
That's-
which is not what Potara should have done.
But then you go over there and look at Blue Gogeta burning the shit out of his ki against Broly, and he's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
What the fuck?
That's what I
Like-
mean. They keep contradicting each other, the rules
They
all the
literally
time.
keep swapping the rules
The
around.
Potara fusion was meant to last half an hour,
It was way stronger than Metamoran.
but then it only lasted 10 minutes because of the power.
Weird.
But the tragic alternative that is, if we're talking about the Zamasu fight, is if he wasn't going to defuse, you would have had to have Vegito lose.
You could have still had Vegeta win, but Trunks comes in and like you know like when they were fighting Cell, and like Gohan's holding Cell, and then Vegeta like fuck, and Vegeta twats Cell in the back of the head.
Could have
Could've
Trunks
been
do
that.
some
Could have
sort
been
of
Trunks comes up behind Zamasu and goes while he's beaming, he's like, "You son of a bitch!" like that, and he like swords him up while Vegeto's
but the
beaming.
thing-
him.
the thing is, if they-
because because it's Gohan's win against Cell,
Yeah,
not and
I'd be okay with
that
saying
was,
it's
that would still be Vegito's win.
Goku.
I was gonna
yeah,
say,
but
I was literally gonna
it
say,
would have been Goku, Vegeta, and Trunks' win.
No,
Trio.
no,
Android trio.
no.
You know.
unless Trunks beam struggled with him. But like, I will agree. I was glad that Trunks had the win.
But Trunks
what should have been Trunks' win.
Oh,
if
but that
Samus
win
didn't
was
come back.
ass, though. He
Yeah.
just randomly discovered the spirit bomb. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, but random powers just
Yeah.
coming out of nowhere. That's Dragon Ball.
I guess.
This is
Give
the
me
thing.
an example, someone.
sorry,
please.
Goku mind reading in Z.
Okay.
That was kind of
That
cool.
was just a random ability, though. Like,
Yeah, but
or like a
so-
technique or something. You know,
Yeah.
like spirit bomb.
Well,
You have to learn it. I just don't
Wait.
believe that Trunks' fucking spirit bomb would have done anything to Zamasu. Because you look at Boo, and yeah, they had to use the whole planet to stop it with the spirit bomb.
yes, we did.
But Boo was exponentially weaker than fused Zamasu.
Yes.
And what the human population in Trunks' future must be way less.
Yes.
And I'm meant to believe that could defeat him
Yeah,
over
I know.
Vegeta.
No, I know.
Like, yeah.
Like, I agree. Like, it.
I know it didn't.
That's
defeat
what I
him
mean.
technically,
Super
like-
had some great moments, some great victory moments, mainly for Trunks and like the Ultra Instinct coming in and all that. Great fights, great moments. But it doesn't accept
It
the
doesn't
fact that that the rest of Super was
It doesn't
still, was
happen
still shit.
organically.
Yeah.
No, but
It doesn't feel worth those moments
But-
sometimes.
Yeah.
it is cool.
It's cool, but
Yeah.
just for the sake of being cool,
Yeah.
and not like for any.
And
It
also-
gets away with it
Yeah.
because Dragon Ball knows how to do cool moments.
It does.
Yes.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
It can only. Be
I,
cool.
I,
That's the
I,
problem. That's it. That
thing is, I'm going with power of friendship on this.
It is just power.
The
of
power,
friendship,
the
yeah.
power of friendship, the power of just
it,
Trunks' love for
There's
his
another thing.
world.
If we're going on topic of Spirit Bomb was ruined in Super 2 because
Jiren.
that Super should have only have been a last resort move, and it should have only have been against a villain. Jiren is not a villain.
No, it shouldn't have even worked on Jiren.
No, not at all. Because like, especially with the amount of people that were there, barely anyone was given the energy. It was only Goku's universe,
Yeah.
like that was given energy to them. You mean to tell me that they're that powerful to go up against Jiren?
I think a couple of the other gods chipped in.
Did they?
I swear they were like, "Oh, go on then," and they went like and helped him out.
Yeah,
I might be
don't know.
misremembering.
It just didn't feel.
It shouldn't
as
have
special.
worked on Jiren. He's a good guy. They
Yeah.
literally said it's a pure energy thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It only
Works on
because Gohan bounces it back in Saiyan Saga.
Yeah.
So like, but it's just like
But is that
Move retcons.
yeah? But
Move
is that
retcons, yeah.
is that dependent on who's giving the energy? Can a spirit bomb? be
Okay,
considered-
planet, give me that stupid energy.
No, I'm talking about because Frieza donated his energy to that spirit bomb. Can that still be considered a move that won't work on good people if Frieza of all people was donating his energy?
again,
to it?
Super just felt like retcon moves just for fan service.
It did. Yeah.
Retcon a lot of moments for fan service. Super, the entirety of Super became fan service. It didn't feel like it was a cohesive story.
But in fairness, the spirit bomb didn't work on Jiren.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's
For
still,
different reasons.
it just
obviously.
didn't
They
make sense for it to be used.
I know.
So
I like but again, it had cool moments, right? Where the black hole.
yeah,
That was weird. Like we've never seen that happen.
kind of pushed it.
Yeah.
It pushed Ultra Instinct out of it.
That was
somehow.
cool, yeah.
Like there's another thing. Super did one thing to Goku that I'll never forgive him for. To how he's like in Z. Even Kai.
Yeah.
Goku's personality, his character. I know Super's Goku was meant to mimic more like the manga's version of Goku,
Yes.
but
They say that.
they
but
say
then
that. But I think even manga Goku's not even that much.
they're full
of
of
a
shit.
dumb
Because
character
when
like
you
that.
when you go back and read like manga Goku of Z, he's not like he hasn't had a brain hemorrhage or anything.
No, like-
he's quite serious.
He's serious. He doesn't act all dumb. He's very cool and like knows what he's doing all the time. Knows what he's saying.
In serious situations, Goku gets serious in Z, and in Super he doesn't. Weirdly, he seems to fuck about.
He has one or two serious moments when it's like
now and again.
now and
Yeah.
again, but it's like. And it's awesome when he does, especially
Yeah.
when it was against Zamasu and Jiren.
Yeah.
But it's like that they were the only two cool moments.
I'm thinking more in fights and shit. I find it really annoying, and it's like almost character assassination-y, that like Vegeta's now the one that has to be like, no, Kakarot, stop being a fucking douchebag. Just get it together, get your head in the game, or whatever.
I think, yeah. Do you know
when
what?
Vegeta was always the one that was fucking it up in fights,
Yeah.
and fucking about, like, oh, actually, wait, let's not kill Cell. So I can,
Vegeta
kill him
has
some.
actually had better development in Super than any other character.
But they still
that's-
do
in
this,
some
like,
ways.
But that's in
dumbass-
C as well. Vegeta had the best.
Yeah, Vegeta's character development has been more consistent.
But they
from
keep
Z.
doing now
Right.
this sort of dumb, like, all right, it's my turn to get him.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
fight him
no,
first.
I know,
It's
yeah.
overdone now.
Their rivalry is still there.
It's funny.
Who they
a
prefer
bit,
to
it's
fight.
cute.
But again, this is why I prefer Vegeta and GT sometimes. I know we're not talking about sequels at the moment, but like I feel like in GT, Vegeta felt more matured.
Yeah.
About the whole thing, like about how things became.
Yeah.
Are you actually giving credit to GT Vegeta?
In some ways, yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Like
I would too, actually.
I'm not gonna lie.
Fuck
In
you,
terms
am I in?
because he's not always going about
He is very
I have
developed
to
in
beat
GT.
Goku all the time and all that.
He's just
blah,
a
blah.
guy.
He's docile.
But
He's become like.
he has more respect for Goku.
He is
He has more
a shell. He is a shell of a former
This is a story
man.
for another time, but like
Because you got to. This is an older Vegeta, so he's by that.
We've got to
point-
stop talking about it. This is a different video.
Oh, you're so right. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Shit, we're gonna start talking about GT.
Yeah, I don't want to
I knew
talk about
this was
GT
gonna
so
happen.
much, but yeah, but like
Ugh, it's so easy to get into.
Yeah,
my
yeah,
comparison
yeah.
for Vegeta in Super and GT is something I definitely want to talk about at some point.
That's another video,
Might be
yeah.
the next video we
Thank
do
goodness,
after this,
yeah.
but yeah.
I
But Vegeta, it still has some decent character development regardless.
I have a good feeling of why they did that to Goku though, and it's quite unfortunate because they wanted to Luffy him up.
Oh yeah, I think so as
Cool
well.
bullshit.
Yeah, I know.
But
But Luffy's nothing.
Luffy's not like that.
Yeah, Luffy's not. Luffy's
really?
goofy, but he's not dumb.
As soon as he's
Are you
fighting,
sure?
yeah, no, seriously, Luffy's like stupid all the time and like when it's lighthearted, but when there's a serious villain that's doing horrible things to someone, he goes into "I'm gonna fuck you up" mode. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Fuck
Yeah.
all you.
Yeah.
Shit, I'm not dicking around now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
will buy you
He's
that.
had
I'm
his
gonna kick
he's
your
had his
ass.
emotional moments when he knows
Goku's
shit's
always
hitting the fan.
like playing with his opponent because he wants the fight, and it makes all the tension feel artificial.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like it's not the villain that's causing the tension; it's the characters fucking about.
Yeah.
You never felt
But-
like in Super that Goku was giving it his all.
Very rarely. Very
But I
rarely
do
that.
get because like Goku has slightly always been like even in Dragon Ball he's always wanted to test his opponent because he's always wanted to get stronger.
But in Z, when shit was serious, he didn't dick around.
No,
he just
didn't.
got it done.
Because
But I don't-
by that point you felt because obviously because he got older and wiser he knew when it was serious.
Yeah.
This is when he was a kid like he just wanted to get stronger because
He felt wiser in
he
Z.
he liked fighting opponents to make himself
I
stronger.
wouldn't
In
say
Z
Goku. When shit went down in Super, Goku knew how to throw hands.
he did, but for some
Yeah.
reason in Super
Made it a game though.
He
was
made
always
it
so-
more
was
of a
always
game.
between him and Vegeta about who goes first. He's always like slowly testing his opponent, like building up his power.
he
level and that.
he literally watched everyone get twatted against
Compared
Beerus
to Z, where Goku's like, right, I just got here.
so that he could read
Margin
his moves.
Right, okay, cool. I'm going 3. You know what I mean? I'm gonna take this guy down, or at least use as much of my power as I can.
But didn't Goku say I would have beaten Majin? I could have beaten Majin Buu with Super Saiyan 3, but I wanted the others to have a go.
Did he?
Yes, I'm 90% sure that's true. He said he could have beaten Majin Buu with Super Saiyan 3, but he chose not to because he knew that his time was running out.
Somebody have to fact check this
Yeah,
shit. I thought he just
They-
couldn't do it because he was running out of energy.
Well, before
Like,
Gotenks showed up on the scene.
Yeah, because he wanted
I
'cause
thought he
he-
was running out of time.
to save Buu for Gotenks.
I feel like I do remember something like that, but
Not sure.
yeah. If
I
he-
am
if he-
99% sure.
That's probably why he had Gotenks on the backup because he knew his time was running out.
With all
Yeah.
these forms now, the characters do this slow build-up thing where they go through each form as they fight the villain and slowly amp up, and it makes it feel like you said, like artificial tension. You know?
Yeah.
It's not. They're not really going all out. This isn't serious business. Realistically, they should use their fullest strength, full force, fuck him up, get him done.
Yeah,
You know.
But Goku has done that.
But the thing is, this is a Saiyan trope. Saiyans love to fight and challenge themselves,
Drag it out.
regardless of how much of a threat this opponent is.
Yeah.
Vegeta had that trait all the time.
But I'm looking at it from Z's perspective.
Yeah.
Like, he still had the fights in Z, and they still challenged him.
For
and,
Goku?
Yeah, and pushed him to his limit on death's door. You know, I'm against Great Ape Vegeta and I'm like half dead.
Yeah.
That was still an awesome fight to him, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But he wasn't goofing around as
No,
much,
no,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, he knew how dangerous he
The
was.
stakes, yeah.
Same for when it was. I think he.
But
But
I think Z Goku. It's never outright properly stated, I guess. But I think Z Goku, he knew that he was the last line of defense. He knew that ultimately, if he screwed up, that's it. In Super, it's a bit more. We have Okay, for starters, in what we already said, in half the arcs of Super, they weren't high stakes to begin with.
No.
You know, the Universe 6 tournament wasn't high stakes. Actually, before that, even the Resurrection F wasn't high stakes because Goku knew Vegeta was behind him, and Vegeta could fuck up Frieza just as easily.
Yeah.
And then the Universe 6 tournament, and then what was after that? Oh, it was Goku Black.
Goku Black,
So
stakes.
There was stakes, and you could see that Goku was giving it his all at several instances.
Yes.
And I do remember Goku at the beginning of Super saying, you know, when him and Goten were like farming, I do remember Goku saying like, I need to keep training because after Boo, any other threat can be stronger than Boo. So I want to keep training because.
Sure.
So he does, I think he does know he knows he's the last line of defense when push comes to shove. So.
But I think in Super he was very rarely that last line. It was very rarely he was like, yeah, if I lose, game over for everyone. I think that was only really a fact in Tournament of Power right at the end.
Yeah.
And even then he still had Frieza with him.
Again, another moment where he really showed like he does care about the planet and his friends. Beerus. In the movie, I don't know if it was in the anime, but in the movie, he was like, "I won't let you destroy my world" or whatever. You know, it's like so. He does. He does show his moments. Yeah, exactly.
The situations just don't feel as grim.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
But I think against in the serious fights against Great Ape Vegeta, Frieza, he was the last one. That's why he kicked back a little bit against Cell. But he only gave his all against Cell to make sure Gohan was watching.
Yeah.
I don't think that's true because I think Goku. I mean, it was partly true, but Goku. It looked like Goku really believed he couldn't beat Cell.
Yeah.
He went into that fight thinking he couldn't beat him.
Yeah.
But I do believe that Goku went in with everything he had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Because that Warp Kamehameha probably would have done it if it wasn't for the regeneration.
Yeah, that was a good hit.
Like,
it was
such an awesome moment. So, it was awesome. Awesome moments like that happens. That means something.
Yeah.
So is the question that does Goku fuck around more in Super? Yes. Does the situation allow him to? I would say yes.
Yes.
I would say the circumstances don't require him to be as pissed off or to be as
ruthless
as certain other ones.
Yeah, I think
it was all down to the wire, really.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I think like Z
told better stories.
Told better stories. That it handled the threats better. Goku knew the seriousness of them. It didn't feel like he was always playing around in Z.
No.
I think Z just felt right because you knew the threats were there. Like you knew the stakes were cohesive.
Yeah.
So.
And you physically can't have a series like this that works if everyone goes into a fight going, I'm going to give this everything I have. Because the first thing you do is just use your strongest move and just blast.
Because the problem is with like current Dragon Ball now, there's so much high expectations for it now. Because obviously, because what people forget, when it was Dragon Ball, it was like we've all said, it's a gag manga, gag anime, because it had so much comedic stuff to it. There wasn't really too much serious fights. It was just like a few punches and kicks here and there. In like the early sagas of Dragon Ball, even some of the World Tournament arcs.
It was also an adventure.
Yeah, it was meant to be an adventure. Yeah,
we were discovering the world with
discovering the world, collecting Dragon Balls. That was the whole point of what Dragon Ball was about.
Yeah.
Meeting all these new characters and antagonists and all that. The stakes didn't really amp until Krillin died, when Piccolo started to come into.
Yeah, because that was like Piccolo was like a major villain.
Yeah, and this was like this is probably like late season 3 to 4.
Yeah.
And season 5 really amped it up with like Piccolo coming back because Piccolo we know now, you know.
Yeah.
And really giving it his all in a gruesome fight. So I think that's when stakes for fights, the expectations for fights, are very high now since then. So and we've had like really consistent fights since then.
Yeah.
And it's not felt like a gag manga anymore. So I think this is the problem with Super we had, because if there was like so many cool fights, a bit of comedy here and there, but although the progression of Z felt like it had a story, is what damaged Super, because we had high expectations for that too.
Yes.
Because Super didn't feel like it was planned.
Exactly. Yeah.
They didn't know where they were going with it. They kind of rushed everything.
But
and we said off screen a few weeks ago when we had the idea of talking about this, doing this as a discussion, that they should have just done like a dimer, where it's like a 20 to 25 episodes thing.
And then take a break.
Take a break.
Take a big break
for the next arc, and
Yeah.
the animation.
The
The animation could have been better that way if they just did it that way.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I want to say off the back of what you just said.
Yeah.
For start, this is why we don't talk about the Dragon Ball series a lot.
Dragon Ball, yeah.
Dragon Ball,
Yeah,
OG
yeah.
Dragon Ball.
Yeah,
Because it is so radically different in tone, everything, up until the World Martial Arts tournaments. And that was when they kind of peaked in popularity, and I guess Toriyama just went, I'll just stick with this for as long as I can. Which, you know, has this good sense.
Yeah.
I would say overall good, because probably wouldn't have got into it. The world probably wouldn't have got into it as much as it had if he didn't make
Dragon
the
Ball's
changes.
fine because it's a complete package and it's the start of Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
You can easily go back if you want to see what Goku's life was like before Z.
Yeah.
You know.
Z is the sequel.
Yeah, Z is a sequel.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's very easy to forget that Z is a sequel.
Yeah, yeah.
People act like Z is the gold standard.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, that's the sequel.
Yeah,
You know?
everyone. There are so many people that have watched Z and haven't touched.
It's like it's a good like Z is still a good thing a good starter to watch because Z still plants some seeds to what's happened before.
Sure.
Especially the Red Ribbon Army and all that. So
Lots of people only watch
So
Z.
it's there for people to go back to actually go see it.
Yeah.
So.
No, I don't think really anyone really cares.
No, but like it's there. It's something there that.
Yeah. It's
like,
an interesting.
this did happen.
Like Zero
you
wasn't
know.
in Dragon Ball,
No,
which is weird.
No, yeah.
They weren't planning that ahead.
Yeah,
No, exactly.
Yeah.
In terms of fights as well, the other big thing was I also said to you off screen. Super was off the back of Dragon Ball Z. Z, as it was coming out, it had no expectation because it was very new at the time. So, but yet somehow it just managed to. It managed to blow everything away because it had no expectations, right?
Yeah.
But because Super was going off the back of Z, everyone was expecting like, oh, this is the sequel to what many people consider one of the greatest animes ever.
Mm-hmm.
So the expectation was already very high. I don't think Super was ever going to live to that hype, no matter what they came out with.
No.
But it does surprise me that when Super did come out, it was given such little care.
Yeah.
In terms of animation, in terms of story, and I agree. I think they would.
How could you drop the ball this hard for Dragon Ball?
Yeah. Just why? How
yeah.
desperate were you for a paycheck back then?
If we knew this is how Super was going to turn out, I would have just preferred each arc was a movie.
I'm not saying that.
Like,
we are making it
Miniseries,
sound like Super's like dog shit right now.
No.
But, like it's really not. But it's just it's so underwhelming
It just
in so
had,
many areas.
but there's just way too many flaws than what compared to what Z had.
I would say Super does have. You said Super was rushed. Z had the exact opposite issue. It was so slow.
Mm-hmm.
Z, talking about original Z, Kai doesn't fix a number of issues. That's a whole other discussion. But Z, it reuses so much animation.
In some
And
parts, yeah.
in a lot of parts, it uses a lot of the same
So
animation.
does Super.
That's what I mean.
Not to that degree.
I remember there's some pretty noticeable things in
Yeah.
Super that they reused.
Not
right?
to not to the degree that Z did. And in Z, you got into 5 minutes into the next episode before anything new happened.
Yeah.
You watch an episode of Z, then you watch the next episode of Z, and you're 5 whole minutes into that episode, just recapping what you've already watched in the last episode.
Yeah.
It is the most painful thing to binge watch.
Yeah.
Because you are spending a third of the time. Because these are 20-minute episodes. That's a quarter of the episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You are spending a quarter of the entire series just recapping what you've already watched. That, for me, does make Z... I'm not going to say unwatchable.
It's a bit of a slog.
It is a slog.
Yeah.
But Super has the exact opposite issue, where it does rush things, and, characters are glazed over, and fights that can be pretty quick. Or sometimes it's the opposite issue, where we're spending too much time with characters that we just don't like.
Mm-hmm.
And the fights are dragging out for too long, but they feel like they're dragging out so long because the stakes aren't high enough for me to really care.
Super feels like it tried a bit of everything, didn't it? It was
Yeah.
like, when it came back after Resurrection F and stuff, they were like, right, a tournament. People like those.
Yeah.
Tournament. Okay, cool. Right, tournament's done. All right, fuck. Future Trunks.
Yeah.
People like Future Trunks. Let's do
Yeah.
Future Trunks. You know, and then they were like, what next? Another tournament, I guess.
That's what I mean. I feel like
Yeah.
Super was trying to just rehash things that have already happened before.
Yeah.
Especially
They're struggling for originality.
especially the manga.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, I didn't want to talk about the manga, but I won't talk about the manga too
It
much.
still
but,
counts.
but the manga,
Yeah.
the manga after Tournament of Power, the arcs that those 2 arcs after Tournament of Power in the manga are amazing.
Yeah, some of the best.
But there are some similarities to it. Like Moro felt like Cell in some ways.
Well,
in terms of
Moro-
forms.
I would say more felt more like Blue. Personally.
Maybe a bit of both.
And they were on Namek.
Like yeah.
So they were like,
They've
remember
used
Namek?
a land,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's a lot. There's
The-
nothing.
The Gap, what's his name's crew, Bojack crew. We said this in the Granola arc. Granola felt like another Tuffle.
It felt like a Tuffle thing.
Yeah.
Like Revenge on the Saiyans.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's struggling for originality. Like something that's completely original.
But I really like those arcs
But-
though. It doesn't.
Yeah.
You can still take inspiration from the previous arcs, but give it more of a twist.
But the most baffling thing is like the most original thing that Dragon Ball did was the whole thing that kicked off Super in the first place, Battle of Gods.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was all
So
original.
Super existed because Battle of Gods did so well, but then it did everything it possibly could to not be Battle of Gods.
Yeah.
Which
Strange.
is very bizarre.
Do you think-
I'm not convinced that this is the anime's fault. I'm almost sort of semi-convinced that this is a Toriyama problem. And he kind of...
Man rest his soul.
Yes.
Out of respect here, by the way.
Out of respect, of course.
His
What
own personal writing limitations.
His own
Yeah.
personal
Yeah.
writing limitations and his... I don't know how to describe it, but I think like he's definitely a kind of...
He looks ahead.
No, but I think he doesn't. That's the issue.
What do you mean?
I
Because
think
he never did before.
because
in
I
Z.
think the issue is like he came up with Battle of Gods and he introduced this whole concept of other universes, but he didn't flesh out enough for the animation team to do anything with it.
Yeah.
Because when the anime did eventually overtake the manga, which shouldn't have been allowed in the first place, just saying.
I know.
Yeah.
When does that ever happen?
Yeah, I know.
When does that happen?
I think
And if
Dragon Ball did that.
when does it happen? And when it does happen, when does it work?
Yeah.
Just doesn't. But I mean, fair play. They tried it, and you know, I think I'm not. But the problem is, I'm complaining that Toriyama wasn't quick enough to come up with the finer details and make a convincing arc in time for the anime to actually make anything good with it. Basically, Toriyama said, "Okay, here's some notes.
Yeah.
Make an anime out of it."
Yeah.
And then the manga came out, and it was
Close to what the anime was doing.
yeah, it was.
essentially,
It almost felt like that Toriyama. It almost felt like Toriyama and Toyotaro. They make random notes, give them the anime, and they took what they liked from the anime and put that in the manga, and changed what they didn't.
Yeah.
It's like they did it in reverse.
Yeah,
almost,
because
like,
the Zamasu arc, we weirdly prefer the manga's version, don't
Yeah.
We do, yeah.
Like,
But there's stuff.
so-
But there's stuff about the anime one that I do think.
Because Zamasu put off a Return of Cooler thing.
he did
With the
but-
clones and shit.
He did.
But then,
Like,
But then
we didn't get the faces in the sky either, which I
yeah,
thought pretty cool.
which I don't think people liked though.
I
in
don't
the
like
anime.
the faces.
I think it's spooky.
I think
It
it's
does.
spooky.
It does add some frilliness to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was cool when it got
The
involved.
idea that he's just this essence that you can't.
It's cool
kill.
that it's
Okay.
cool when they used it in Xenoverse.
Yeah. Like, what does immortality truly mean when you destroy the body?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
I do agree with that. I think
Yeah.
it was how they resolved the issue that was.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What a
But
terrible ending to an arc. Possibly the worst ending to any Dragon Ball arc ever.
Which is why I loved what they tried to do in Sparking Zero.
Yeah.
They tried to fix those arcs
Yeah.
in a way where instead of Goku Black, and we've said this in our previous commentaries, Gohan Black should have been the antagonist for Trunks because it would have hurt him way more emotionally.
I would want to do a whole video on this, but I don't want it to. I don't want it to. Just
I
be-
agree with you as well.
Yeah,
I think
but
we're all
yeah,
in agreement.
yeah.
And I was going to say that obviously because obviously one of the other decisions you could do in Sparky Zero was that Trunks stayed in the past to go to Tournament of Power to get the Dragon Balls to wish his future back.
That
I
was
think
good.
that would have been a clever way to bring his future back.
It was a It is really saying something when Super, the show that we're talking about in comparison to Z, has one of the worst endings to an arc in any of Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
That's something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And some boring ones
Spark
too,
is
like Tournament of Power, like you said, ended in a really boring resolution.
Yeah, because you knew the universe was going to go back. Again, I didn't expect Android 17 to win and all that. That was kind of cool, I guess. I mean, win by a fluke, but
We just pick a random character to win
Yeah.
by
But-
flukiness.
Exactly. The problem is with that, it's just like, with the exception of Frieza, it doesn't matter who of the characters you picked, you knew what was going to happen.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it didn't. And again, it's the fact they replaced Boo with Frieza. Now, obviously, I love Frieza.
He did steal the show.
He did steal the show, but
Yeah.
it's just like it would have been sick to see Boo.
Slim Boo.
Yeah, like.
That's such a cool idea that Super could have done to take a character. You know, we say about characters getting progression. A lot of characters in Super haven't really.
Yeah.
For the longest time, and it's just one that you wouldn't think of. Majin Buu never gets any change to how he is, any progression whatsoever.
Yeah.
Having him look like Super Buu, slim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a great idea.
Yeah.
They could have kept that going.
Yeah, and
Rare moments of genius that doesn't get used.
another thing, the biggest problem with that is that they did it twice.
And it's the
When?
fact.
The Universe 6 arc. Boo was
Oh,
meant to
yeah.
be in that.
And
Yeah.
they really fuck Boo in Super.
They really
Yeah.
fucked Boo over.
And they just gave you pointless characters that you were never going to use. Like, what was his name? Ku? Not Ku. That's Daima.
That was
Diamond.
Oh,
Don't you fucking say a word about Boo.
Manoka.
Manoka, yeah.
I think it's Manoka.
Minoka, yeah.
It's just the fact that
What a waste.
Or it's Monaka.
Monarca.
Monarca, yeah.
It's just I remember they were introducing random characters that just didn't
Gag
have a place in that.
characters.
Yeah.
But on the
And they were
here's another down point for Z though. That's a Z problem as well. But Z had it worse. I think Z did it even worse. Z had all these characters, and it didn't even introduce characters. So Dragon Ball establishes the characters as well, and does a great job with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then Z comes along, and we're like, right, how are we going to see all these characters play off?
Mm-hmm.
Tien, Yamcha, Chaozu, Yajirobe, Master Roshi, Krillin, they all fucking just vanish.
they all got on.
Actually, no, Krillin does... Okay,
Krillin's still consistent.
Krillin is consistent, but he doesn't evolve in any significant
No.
meaning.
No.
After the Saiyan saga,
Other than landing a wife.
that's it. After the Saiyan saga, that was kind of it for the. I mean,
Yeah.
I will still respect Yamcha and Tien still having a hand in the Cell games. I know they got the last ass kicked, but at least they tried.
Yeah.
They were even in the beam struggle against Cell, trying to distract Cell and
I
give
can
it all.
forgive it more in Z.
I still like they
because-
still tried to work as a team, even though they knew what they were up against.
I forgive it more in Z because all these characters had their arcs in Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
Vegeta had to have his arc in Z, and he did.
Yes.
And it continued very prevalently into Super Vegeta's arc. It's still going. Vegeta's arc is never fucking ending. Maybe it'll end with him getting a win.
yeah.
And
We
Super,
can only hope.
the show where I feel like cause the side characters have had so much downtime of doing nothing in Z, that would have been the time to really make them shine.
Yeah.
And it's debatable whether or not they have. Some people will say yes, some people will say no.
Yeah, because Tien fought again in Super, didn't he? With Tournament Power and all that.
He was like the first one to be eliminated.
Yeah.
I think he actually
And
was
they
the first.
I
Yeah.
think he was as well.
Yeah.
Which is real,
And
and,
really-
and not in a cool way.
No.
I mean, you can't give everyone cool moments, but I will give Super a little bit of credit for at least it's
They
consistent.
made Master Roshi
It-
badass again too.
I still
True.
think Tien went out better than Piccolo did. Do you remember how Piccolo went out in the anime?
That little
he was
midget.
fighting a bug.
That little
and
bug.
it like tripped him and he was
Oh.
like, oh! like, went out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I feel like they really
but I
ruined
think-
Piccolo in Super.
Up until very recently.
Up until recently.
But I'll give Super some credit. At least it's for Goku and Vegeta show, but at least it was consistent with that. It kept that Goku and Vegeta theme.
True.
And they are the two more interesting characters. Gohan.
Because everyone's had their run.
Yeah.
Like,
Everyone
now.
has had their run. I would say Goku.
Which
has
is
had
not a
their
bad
run,
thing, but obviously I still miss these characters being involved.
And
Like,
the way they get more powered up now in Super is you give them out of nowhere transformations.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
absolutely, yeah.
Bullshit
I'm
sound.
surprised Tien didn't have a transformation.
Yeah.
Like an eight arm move. Because I don't think he's
Yeah.
had 8 arms yet, has he? It's just been the 4-arm one, wasn't it? Like, so, I don't know. Or multiple eyes.
But we joke about that as a random out of nowhere transformation. But if that happened, we
It's
would have
some-
lost.
we would love it.
We would have lost our
Yeah.
Yeah,
minds.
because that's something Tien could do.
Yeah.
I'm happy to see them get something like I am Orange Piccolo. I'm happy it exists.
Yeah.
I have little qualms about it, like
Yeah.
the name and shit.
Could
know.
you imagine Sorry, quickly.
Go
Just
ahead.
like, could you imagine like 8-arm TN, like quad tri?
Yeah,
It'd be
yeah,
sick.
yeah, it would be
Just, like,
sick. Yeah,
incredibly broken.
Yeah.
Not broken, but it'd break TN more
We
than
still
anything.
we still have more Super to look forward to. Only in the manga, obviously, so you never know.
And the side characters do make a comeback in that.
Exactly.
They do.
They do.
They do something.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah,
Yeah. But Super's biggest problem, like, is, as you said, it introduces characters that it gives significance to and then drops them as quickly as possible.
yeah.
Because Super's a popularity contest.
Yeah.
The characters like get a good showing, come back. The characters that don't.
I genuinely think Super was just something they needed to, so they could do more games and make more games
Like
more
sell
interesting.
some more toys.
Yeah, sell more toys, more merchandise, more characters to play as.
I don't consider it a coincidence that some of the worst selling Dragon Ball games came out just before Battle of the Gods. Because people were very tired of the same old story. And
Yeah, I feel like maybe.
I don't think they could invest enough money into Dragon Ball games to make a proper, like...
It's a shame too, because we were looking forward to like female Saiyans and different universes and all that. But it's just, but they weren't utilized properly.
No.
They just kind of was strong off the bat. Kaba should have never gotten Super Saiyan 2, Super Saiyan 1 for that matter.
I think he should have, just not that way.
Yeah.
They could have...
This is a whole thing.
I've said this from...
There's so much of Super we're talking about here, because it's. I feel like this has been more of a Super discussion rather than a comparison.
It has been. I'll quickly change that though. In Z was decent. Sorry, it's more than decent. Not getting enough credit. Z did a good thing where each arc had one villain to worry about, more or less. The
Yeah.
Android Saga obviously had the androids, but it was apparent quickly
Yeah.
that there was a higher force. To
Yeah.
be,
But
to
it
be
was
worried
like that in
about.
the Frieza saga too, because you had Zaba Nodori, then the Ginyu Force, then Frieza.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You knew that there was an end game there with one individual villain. So
Super doesn't have villains.
doesn't it?
Technically
In the
not.
manga,
Yeah.
like...
Only Frieza was the only comeback.
Yeah.
I was going somewhere with this, and I can't hear. Basically, there was enough downtime in between getting ready for the next big bad in Z
Yeah.
for side characters to train, and
There was like.
their progression was believable.
Yeah. Like when Trunks warned them about the androids, that was 3 years later. They got to train in that time enough for them to get stronger.
it was something a
Talk
bit
about
better.
the time chamber and all that.
But when Super comes around, it's difficult. Basically, what I'm trying to say, what Super really needed, which was never going to happen, what Super really needed, it needed a whole arc about Universe 6.
Yeah.
Just the Universe 6.
Tell us
things.
more
And
about
it looked
Yeah.
like it was going that route, because Vegeta said, I'd like to visit your universe one day and visit Planet Sadala.
I think that
blah,
would have
blah.
been healthier for us to like those characters more. There
Yeah.
would have
Yeah.
been something
There-
going
it sh-
on.
Yeah, there should have been some sort of arc in between before getting to
Yeah.
the tournament, maybe.
But because Super was so dead set on this being the Goku and Vegeta show, which I'll give it some credit, you stuck to your guns. But you introduce these characters that you want people to love, and it's just impossible to love them because we don't spend enough time with them, and their motivations are so paper thin,
Yeah.
and the power scaling again doesn't work. But the power scaling would work if you just. It's so bizarre how, in Z, you just said they had the 3 years to train between Trunks' warning and that happening. But 3 years was enough for us to believe, they got an exponentially stronger. I don't know how much time passed between the Universe 6 tournament and Tournament of Power.
Yeah, well, I don't think it was only
But
for a few months, wasn't it?
Surely. Yeah, maybe a year.
But Goku and
Are you-
Vegeta still trained in the time chamber for like a year or something.
They've got time chamber and that.
Yeah.
So.
They use that as an excuse to get stronger, though.
Yeah, in fact, Universe
Time
6
chamber is handy.
But
for that sort of thing.
I don't think there's any possibility that they could have said, we spent years training and this is what we can do, and people would buy it. I think no matter how much, because we don't see it,
Yeah.
I think if Cabba turned up and went Super Saiyan 2, no matter how much time he said, I've been training for 2 years, 3 years, 7 years, I don't think no matter how much time he said he would have been training for, it would have still felt like BS.
It's always going to be an
Yeah.
unacceptable thing when
Yeah.
you're comparing it to Goku and Vegeta.
Yeah,
And stuff.
I feel a lot of modern Dragon Ball now, just because of all the stuff that comes out of it that makes no sense. It doesn't feel acceptable. And again, we've said this about superhero. You know, I think Broly was the only reasonable exception, kind of,
And
to
that's
some degree.
It's only because we like Broly.
And yeah, I was gonna say, I'm
Well, I
gonna give
think-
Super credit that it brought Broly back. That's something I never thought I'd see come back, and he made them canon.
But I only give Broly a
And
free
Vegeta.
pass on, I only give Broly a free pass on that because he's the legendary Super Saiyan. That is an ability.
Yeah.
That is an ability exclusive to that title.
That's a
He gets-
very debatably retconned ability.
Yeah.
That is very
yeah.
debatable, but fuck it, it's going what I'm going with.
Yeah.
Broly's
I've
just
seen-
like all the. We're just supposed to go with Broly's a prodigy along with Frieza and fucking Gohan, fucking everyone else. Except Broly's prodigyism is that he's just that. Again, you want to call bullshit here? I guess you could say he's like 40 plus, so
Yeah.
he's not exactly like Carbo and all them lot who are like
Kids, teenagers.
little bean
They,
sprouts.
they feel
yeah.
like young.
It feels
Saiyans,
like
yeah.
okay, it's a little bit more acceptable that he'd be this powerful off the bat.
Yeah.
On top of the fact that he's just Broly and he's just
Yeah.
meant to be that strong.
Yeah.
We're giving him the free pass.
He was born like powerful, wasn't
Yeah,
he?
we're
So-
giving him the free pass.
He was like that in the original movie, so.
I think, but like you said, the simple fact that thanks to Super, Broly's canon. We got a canon version of Broly. An amazing thing.
Gave us one of the best
An
fights
incredible
Super
thing.
gave us.
Yeah.
Like,
Something we never would have ever predicted.
an animation that should have been what Super looks like.
Yeah.
You know?
And
so,
Gogeta became canon.
Gogeta being my
Incredible
favourite
shit.
fusion.
Yeah.
Another
made
great
it
example
badass.
of no originality, but
Yeah,
No.
literal fan just
But
take
it
what
was
they want.
it was fan
Yeah.
service done right though.
it was done.
Yeah.
I felt like that's
Yeah.
the only good thing Super I feel like did. Don't get me wrong, Ultra Instinct was probably the only unique and original thing they did.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like
Correct,
I
yeah.
never would have thought Ultra Instinct. It's not even a form; it's a technique.
It's not a Super Saiyan.
It's
form.
given them,
No.
but it's given them a different haircut. But it's cool.
Yeah.
He's moving like really fast, you know,
Yeah.
like supersonic speed and shit.
Yeah.
When we thought like his speed against Frieza was fast enough and all that, you know, like and Super Saiyan Blue and all that was meant to be fast. No, Ultra Instinct Goku was given Jiren like a hard time. So
Yeah.
it's like, and Jiren's meant to be as powerful as like almost a god of destruction.
I liked the slant on it, Ultra Instinct, that it was your body dodging. It's not you're
Yeah.
not consciously doing it. Your
Yeah.
body's just reacting.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I will give Super
Yeah.
credit for
It's
that.
not just a power up.
No.
There was a couple of unique stuff that happened in Super, and I dig that.
On the same hand, though, we could
And it's sick to players in games.
could you make the argument though that Super overinflated it with forms? Sometimes
I feel
two in
like
one lot.
it made the previous forms redundant, and
Yeah.
they lost their specialness.
Mm.
The Super
But-
Saiyan forms.
But that's a Z problem.
Yeah, but I think Z.
Okay, so Z problem Z started very early with that problem because they said Super Saiyan appears only once every 1,000 years. Half the cast gets it.
Yeah, I know, but it's like
Later on.
these are
And-
these are characters that have trained and stuff like that.
I know,
you
but you saying original Saiyans didn't?
I don't think they ever did. They never really needed to train, did they?
Original Saiyans must have done some form of
They
training.
were always constantly fighting anyway
They
on
must have. They
planets.
must have. Their training rooms.
And this was like these were Saiyans like from like 1,000 years ago, so they probably took a while to evolve.
I'm talking about Saiyans from 50 years ago.
Yeah,
but-
when they were
but-
still alive, do you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they had training.
Well, I mean, Bardock was kind of the start of it. That Saiyans were quickly getting stronger,
I don't believe.
and that's where the whole idea of a Super Saiyan was returning was kind of started.
I don't think it makes any logical sense that Goten can learn Super Saiyan at age 6 and Bardock didn't get Super Saiyan at all canonically.
Gohan got it at 10.
Yes, but
Like,
yeah, exactly. It doesn't
but,
make
but,
any
but,
sense.
that, but
does
that was when he was being pushed to get it out.
Exactly. He was being pushed. He was being taught by someone that did have Super Saiyan. And also, you know, they said it a billion times. Gohan is just a prodigy. He's just got some innate talent.
Again, I think it might just be they just made it more of a gag thing by that point. Again,
I don't think it's a gag.
Another excuse
But
for
I
a
think,
gag.
I think it's a trope.
Super Saiyan bargain sale, all that kind of thing.
Yeah,
that
it's
Vegeta
by
jokes
Boo,
about, yeah.
but I think, you know,
I think it's
by the end of Cell, you had 4 Super Saiyans. And this is meant to be some peak legendary form that only gets 1,000 years. And I think it's only for plot convenience, I would say, that they got it. And
that there was a level 2.
yeah, and that was
level 3.
yeah, exactly, because
Yeah.
they had to keep pushing it.
Yeah.
Let's remember that now I mean, that the whole legendary Super Saiyan thing is also redundant because of Super Saiyan God now. Which one was the legendary Super Saiyan? The Super Saiyan or Super Saiyan God? Was there two? Like, doesn't make any sense.
Screwy.
Well, it is.
Another thing, I was meant to mention this earlier. Super also ruins what made C so good, because like Frieza's intentions to destroy the Saiyans, it wasn't even Frieza's idea to do it. Beerus gave the order. That's what I don't like.
Frieza still wanted to.
Yeah, but like it made it when he mentions it in Resurrection F, I'm like, well, that doesn't really feel like Frieza's doing that.
I do get it.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
it does.
it's like
kind
Frieza
of,
had no choice but to destroy him, not just because he was afraid of the Super Saiyans. It's because Beerus would have killed him otherwise.
In my head, I did more see it as
It made Beerus less of a threat. It made Frieza less
fearful.
Yeah.
Frieza's won Achilles' heel
Because he was taking orders from someone that he had no choice to take orders from.
Yeah. Which is interesting because Frieza always insisted he's the most powerful.
Exactly. Yeah.
But then all these people know about Beerus, and I'm like,
well,
I don't mind it because it's kind of cool that.
Was it flat out said that Frieza was like afraid of the Super Saiyan legend, or were characters just saying that to him? Like, you're afraid of the legend, aren't you? Or was Frieza like actually physically afraid of it, or was he just like fuck them saying?
I think he didn't like the idea of that. I think he knew that
he was like, that couldn't happen.
If he didn't put a stop to this, I think he knew that Saiyans were drastically getting stronger, and he was worried that they probably could be one day.
Was this ever
threat
said
to me? That's why he destroyed the entire race. I swear, I think Frieza says it in the original Z.
Because I like Frieza, as far as I'm concerned, surely he just knows he's the best, and Saiyans could never beat him.
Right. I genuinely think he destroyed the planet because
that's why
he ordered all the Saiyans to come back to the planet Vegeta.
Yeah, no, I know he wanted to destroy the planet, and that's why he brought them back. But I always thought it was weird that he destroyed the planet, because I'm like, that's a lot of your military force right there. That's like 13 or 30% of your military.
I find it weird that.
But if Beerus gave him the order, then he'd be like, oh well, it's out of my hands, die.
Yeah. I think I find it more weird that, you know, if we are going on the basis like Frieza is afraid of the Super Saiyans, which I do think, because whenever someone did say you're afraid of Super Saiyan, he'd get pissed.
Yeah.
But maybe out of just like, I'm not. You know, but maybe he secretly is.
I'm pretty sure I remember Goku.
But
sorry, go on.
But the thing is, what I find, one thing I find really weird is that Frieza's just like, he did that because he's supposed to be afraid of the Super Saiyan, but then the idea, I guess that's just part of his character. He's just so in denial about himself. He just can't possibly fathom the idea of anyone being stronger later on.
Yeah, that was probably partly why, but I'm pretty sure it was because he probably knew they were going to be a threat to him one day if they kept getting stronger. If he allowed them to get stronger, when he found out.
But when it did get to later on, he couldn't possibly fathom the idea that a Saiyan would be stronger than him.
No.
It was apparent that it just couldn't happen. It was not a possibility in his head.
But it happened.
It happened because then look how afraid he was when Goku turned Super Saiyan in front of him.
Yeah.
Like, especially when he saw the Super Saiyan in Trunks.
We're talking.
He was scared.
You know what? While we're on the topic, actually, I would say this.
He was getting like PTSD seeing Goku in Trunks' face.
This is something that Z did do, without question, better than Super is villains. You said earlier that Super does not have villains. You're right. Z had the best villains. Z had the best villains. One of them turned good, but that was.
Oh, Boo. Yeah.
No.
Of Vegeta.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Technically, so yeah.
Two of them technically, yes.
It just had clever ideas for villains, but I don't want to like suck their dick too much and be like, Cell was such a profound villain with such a profound.
Oh, absolutely not,
backstory.
because
Cell felt like he had a purpose.
All right,
that's all.
But Frieza felt like just like was killing because he is an evil bastard.
Let me emphasize. Be more accurate. They had the more threatening.
Yeah.
Villains.
Yeah. 100%.
As characters,
I still think they had enough like characterization to make them likable.
Yeah.
Cell was likable for his character, the way he talked and the way he acted.
Cell had the advantage of the way he talked, the way he acted, but his motivations were very dull.
Yeah, it was just I'm going to destroy the planet and kill Goku and that.
Yeah,
and move on.
Because why?
Yeah, exactly. Why? I never really got Cell because I'm like, what is your goal?
I thought it was just for him to like I don't know, go to different universes to prove his strength. I
Do more tournaments.
I don't know. Maybe yeah. Maybe I don't know. Because I remember he was talking
Welcome
about.
to the 45th Cell
I
Games.
don't know. I think he was. I don't know. I remember him talking about it. What his
did,
purpose was.
He did say he was going to go off to other planets and just prove he was the strongest. So I guess in that sense, you could argue that he's real evil Goku.
Yeah. In some ways, yeah.
In some ways, yeah.
Yeah,
He's the absolute antithesis of them. But I don't consider him very deep as a character.
No.
Frieza was just.
Frieza's a tricky one because he's not deep as a character, but yet it's his simplicity.
He's just a bastard.
He's just an evil bastard.
He's just yeah.
There's not a lot of redeeming qualities about him, but he's just so entertaining as a villain.
That's what makes him such a good villain.
Yeah,
like,
you just can't, and he's just so threatening.
He would just keep.
So
Do you remember that episode we watched ages ago when he had Vegeta by the throat and he saw that little crab crawl up on the little rock? And, he ate it or stamped on it. I'm like, he just keeps killing.
He just can't stop.
Little creatures like that, all the Namexian dead and all that. Like,
It's just what he does.
yeah,
He just kills. He's just the absolute reaper of life.
yeah.
But Cell.
And he would do whatever it takes for him to win, even if it's
Yeah.
like really like petty.
Actually, you know what? I would say for Cell, he got worse as he went on. He had the best introduction.
Oh yeah, he was creepy.
He was creepy.
Me and you always went on about it, didn't we? Yeah.
He was creepy, sadistic, powerful.
It's a great curveball for the arc.
Yeah.
And I know it happened by complete accident when you go into the story of why they wrote it that way. With Cell's introduction and that. Because it is great halfway through the arc, isn't it? That you're like, androids. What's going on over in Orange Town? You know what I mean? And then they go over there and it's like, who the fuck is this?
Yeah,
And suddenly a whole new villain.
Yeah.
And it was a great mystery at the time as well.
Mystery and
Because we didn't know who he was. We didn't know where he came from.
What's his goals?
Yeah,
what's
which we didn't get again until Goku Black.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it wasn't satisfying.
And how he absorbed people was so graphic.
Yeah.
Like the animation. There's something I loved about each arc in Z. It always had different art styles as the animation progressed.
I want to quickly say, because we've been saying Cell's awesome. Boo wasn't that deep.
Wasn't that deep? But
Boo wasn't deep.
But he had like a childlike mind.
The Mr. Satan sub-story that turned into the separation of the good and evil thing, I thought was quite deep.
Yeah.
That was interesting. I definitely didn't see that coming when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But I would again argue that I think Boo got less interesting as a character as the story went on.
Yes.
Yeah.
By Kid Boo, he was not interesting at all. Really.
Super Boo felt like Cell by that point.
He did.
The absorptions, he gets stronger, and
similarities.
he wants to fight someone strong.
Yeah.
It's sad because Majin Buu was incredibly powerful. He was evil through ignorance.
Mm.
He didn't acknowledge the value of life until Mr. Satan came along. Who would have thought Mr. Satan would be
Such character.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
One of the most annoying things
Neat writing.
One of the most annoying things about the Cell games. What a turnaround.
I know. Yeah. And now he's part of the family.
But yeah,
It's weird.
exactly. And Majin Buu was like, okay, he's evil, but he's not. He's just ignorant to the value of life. And it's just like, okay, so there's some redeeming quality here. And then Evil Buu came out. It's like, oh, we got a good Buu and we got an evil Buu.
Right. Contrast.
Yeah.
And as quickly as that,
Oh.
good Buu was gone. And then it was just pure evil.
Just, I'm a bad guy now.
Yeah.
And it was just that. It was like, I'm bad guy right until the end. And I was just like,
became a generic villain again.
it was a generic
Yeah,
villain.
yeah.
Of threatening.
Threatening.
Still threatening.
Yeah.
Still
He
threatening.
blew up the planet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No other villain
like
has
that.
done that yet.
No.
By that point, I don't think. Yeah.
No?
No.
I don't think so.
No, they
Not
haven't.
Earth, no.
Right.
Not that quickly, anyway. It was. We didn't expect him to just. No villain up to that point had just randomly gone right. Fuck the planet, kind of thing.
yeah,
It was so out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, it went. There was still that element. It was weird. Super Buu was the weirdest one because he lost that childlikeness, but he. And
My favourite form.
well, Super Buu.
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, even Super Boo's creepy.
When he started,
he was just as
when he
creepy as
started
Cell.
talking more and absorbing more people, I think he got less creepy. I think Super Buu was the perfect level of creepy.
So base Super Buu.
Base Super
Before
That-
he started absorbing.
That scene we're always going about where Super Boo's like screaming, he goes into that
Oh,
guy's
and he
mouth,
blows the guy up.
just
Yeah.
blows him up.
Just his whole
Yeah.
constantly while
This
he's
is-
there.
this is
He's
what
always
I-
leaning his neck and shit. Like,
This is why I like original Z for music as well,
Mm.
because of that theme that plays. It's
Doom, doom, yeah.
you know, it had this really menacing music for what to really show how dangerous this villain is.
That's Falconer soundtrack.
Yeah, man.
But this is the magic of Z. Although we just said that Z's villains, they're not that deep, but they are menacing,
Yeah.
and they do, and
They have a presence, and that's all you need.
they do have a presence.
Yeah.
And this is why the good guys are able to get a bit more time to themselves. But then Super does try and correct this, that it gives a little bit more time to the villains, but I'm not even making them villains necessarily. But the downside of that, there's less time for the heroes to properly develop, and they're introducing more heroes on top of what
That's
we
what I
already
mean,
got anyway, and it's
I genuinely feel like
it's not easy.
I genuinely feel like Zamasu was probably meant to be the villain that you wanted to feel sympathy for, but it just didn't work because there was no development. There was not much development to him.
There wasn't enough development to him, and by the end, he was
He had
up his own ass.
He was up his own ass at times. I'd be lying if I said I didn't find him intimidating at times.
I think he had a presence.
He definitely had a presence, especially when his theme would play.
A lot of the
Goku.
characters...
I mean, Goku Black's introduction was amazing.
It was.
When he came up with the building and it's about
Appeared.
time saying,
Yeah.
"Fuck, that's Goku, evil Goku." The idea of that was so cool. Like, what the fuck? Trunks is fighting.
It's funny
evil
though because
Goku.
there was very little mystery to be had with Goku Black from the very beginning. That scene he's describing when he first showed up and we saw the earring, and then he went, you know, what was it? I found you Saiyan. And we're like, instantly I know that's not Goku.
yeah, that's what I mean. Like,
Yeah, but you didn't know
You
what
just ruined it.
yeah,
But there were clues, you know. There was, as you say, the earring, the Kai outfit, but I was just like, okay, so there's some Kai mixed in here.
Yeah.
So what
but there was like, obviously that we don't have to go on a tangent on this, but there's a weird paradox there that just didn't make sense with Trunks'
The Goku
future.
Black paradox is the most confusing.
Because the time rings fuck it all up.
Yeah.
Like,
It basically means that there was always a Goku Black forever, and he just seemed to come out of nowhere. It's impossible for him to have existed, and yet he does anyway, which I kind of love and also hate at the same time.
Yeah.
In fact, that's that whole arc for me.
yeah.
It is very needlessly confusing.
Yeah.
And obviously, I don't like that. Obviously, Frost. I hated that they ruined him.
Yeah, no.
Frost was hilarious.
We could have finally had a good version of Frieza.
Just a good Frieza
Just to
race.
really add a different dynamic to that
Why not?
race, you know? Like, it would have been interesting.
Universe 6, we had...
There's so much more we could say for this comparison, but this has gone on long enough.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough.
We are stretching thin now.
We keep getting into specifics. I suppose.
Yeah.
Fucking Super.
Fucking Z!
Yeah.
Fucking Z, though.
How do we want to wrap this up then? Like, comparison wise?
I think we're going to need to do a part 2 and talk about this for another hour and a half. If I had to really quick this up...
Animation is the
Better.
Art style was better. Super's animation
Up and down.
because it did get quite good
Super-
like here and there.
Its highs were higher than than Z, but its lows were lower than almost anything on TV.
Yeah.
Anime-wise.
So
Story.
Z, villains Z. Like I said, we didn't really say much about villains.
What can you do? I think Z is so good purely by accident. Now, we've had this discussion.
We knew,
Toriyama and the way he writes, which we know, or the way he wrote, rest in peace, is that he always looked forward in stories. He was always like, what can we do next? What could happen next?
Yeah.
He never looked back.
No.
Very rarely did he look back and try and stitch shit together.
Do you think...
And I think with the how we know that he tried to end the story at various points throughout Z, it was that he caught lightning in a bottle. It was by complete accident that these arcs happened in the way that they did, and they were so perfect.
Yeah.
But I
know what
think...
I mean?
But do you think Super suffered because maybe there was more studio interference? Like more...
There were more heads at work. I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
But I think if we're talking about studio interference, then there was just as much as Z. We wouldn't have had Cell at all.
True, yeah.
His editor got involved.
His
yeah.
editor.
We never would have had Boo involved, I guess. Yeah.
So that was all by accident.
Yeah.
And even we've just had a whole discussion saying even that wasn't perfect in a lot of areas for Z. So you can say that.
I think like both Z and Super ruined some characters in some ways, or had like.
But like Z, like I said, my closing statement is that Z as a sequel didn't try and heavily. The only thing it heavily retconned that I can think of compared to Dragon Ball was that it suddenly said Goku's an alien.
Yeah.
Huge retcon.
To explain why he was so strong,
And
why
the
he had a
tail.
tail, yeah.
Gigantic retcon, and it's the only one I can think of. Super as a sequel to Z was like, let's just fucking retcon everything, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Constant retcons.
It was an introduction to
But
gods.
Z retcon just as much.
Ish. Apart from the aliens thing. I'm an alien now. Biggest retcon.
Yeah,
But once a year, once every 1,000 years of Super Saiyan, that was retconned.
Yeah.
Where? What do you mean?
Z.
No, but I mean, Z as a sequel to Dragon Ball didn't retcon anything.
Oh,
from
sorry,
Dragon
yes, for progression. But Z
Super as a sequel to Z.
Yeah, but Z couldn't even wait to get its own sequel before it started retconning shit.
There's a whole few things that we could rant.
I mean, look
more
what
about.
happened to Bardock.
Yeah, Bardock's retcon with Minus, and then they incorporated that in
Broly.
Super Broly, but they tried to mix a little bit of original Bardock in there with the bean.
What, did we
the
not
event-
like original Bardock?
Did the events of the original movie happen eventually for him to do that?
It needed a
obviously
retcon.
the original movie is referenced in original Z anyway.
Yeah.
So like when Frieza has that flashback and Frieza's
He's there with the
Bardock's
bandana
there, like
in
he
the
was-
panel.
Yeah.
Your father was a great scientist.
Yeah.
I remember that actually. Yeah.
What?
I'm glad that was retconned at least because he wasn't.
That
a
was the bad
scientist.
dub, wasn't it?
I
Yeah.
think so. Yeah,
Goofy
it might be
dub.
in the ocean dub. I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm not sure. And obviously they ruined the female characters. They won't fight us anymore.
Was he?
18 was the only consistent one because at least she came back in the tournament power.
But she doesn't have any evolution anymore.
No.
So
I missed Videl being badass as well.
Same.
So yeah, and obviously I don't like Chi Chi and Z.
I think
I know she's meant to be a strict mum,
same with Super, dude.
but it's just like I remember watching the Saiyan saga, and obviously Chi Chi wasn't fond of Gohan fighting the Saiyan saga, blah blah blah. But then when he goes to hospital, she immediately gives him workbooks and shit. I'm like, Gohan can barely move right now. You're gonna give him workbooks to work on?
I think, yeah.
It's on his deathbed.
Chi-Chi...
Chi-Chi is just too much in Z.
I think for one, the big... Oh, God, this...
That's why I
this
preferred
is
it.
not-
That's
this
why I
is not
preferred
a
it in the
one
Boo
and done
saga.
video. This is not one and done video. This is not gonna happen.
There's so much we could say.
Yeah, but Chi-Chi's...
But I hope we
biggest-
covered most of it.
Just call this a ramble.
I think
Yeah,
I
it's a
think we've
little bit
barely
of a ramble.
scratched the surface.
Yeah.
Chi-Chi's biggest problem was that I get the overprotective other thing. I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that was all she did.
Yeah.
If she did anything else, it would have been excusable. But she didn't. If she was a fighter, if she stayed as a fighter and was like on the front lines, even the like, you know, you could even say at like Yamcha level.
Sure.
Yeah,
level.
yeah.
Like fighting with Cybermen at the Attack of a Saiyan thing.
Yeah. Then she gets blown up by Simon. Goku goes Super Saiyan early.
Yeah.
That could have been great. But,
That could have been cool.
But because her only role was to be strict pain in the ass mum, completely destroyed any respect for her. Completely.
Yeah, it really did.
Well,
Which
yeah.
is sad.
I know, yeah.
And as you say, the female characters in Z just did not get.
would you say that was character assassination in Z?
Yes.
Yeah.
I would.
I would agree to that.
Yeah.
To be honest, yeah, because it was,
It was-
yeah.
Yeah, that's a character assassination. The other characters in Z just got forgotten.
Yeah.
I guess you could somewhat say Yamcha's character was assassinated because I remember
He just
Yamcha.
retired.
Yeah.
He just
Most of
yeah,
it.
but Yamcha was he was a badass bandit. He could
Yeah.
hold his own. And then in Z he was a joke.
Yeah.
And then he became a baseball star.
And then,
He's
even
rich.
Yeah.
I mean, he won.
he won life.
No,
Yeah.
literally. But Launch, she was one character that just vanished.
Yeah.
Like, so she appeared here and there in the Saiyan saga, but that's it.
I think
Did she?
Yeah.
She did briefly. Yeah, in a bar.
Yeah.
Z versus Super. How we ending it? What we saying? I think that Super is unfairly judged, like you said, because it could never be as good as Z. It
No.
wasn't possible for it to be as
No.
good as Z. But it has a lot of good ideas.
If it had more time,
Yeah.
maybe it could have been better than what we got.
There's shit that I'd still say I like from Super.
I genuinely think there's moments in the manga of Super I will much prefer than the anime. How they handled arcs better.
Super to me is a purest example of overcorrection.
And we got some really cool movies out of it, kind of.
Super tried to take what didn't work from Z, and it tried to fix a lot of it, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
A lot of time, like the like I said, for reusing animation, the faster pace,
putting less focus into certain things with the characters so they can get on with fights and stuff. Less downtime, less filler, less bullshitting. Yeah, exactly.
And then because that was another thing. Like there was so much talking in Z.
Yeah,
so much talking, and a good, I want to say like 70% of it, I guess, great portion of it was just them telling us what we just saw happened.
Yeah,
Super though still does do that quite a bit.
Yeah.
But not as much.
Power Tournament, half of that shit was them cutting to the stands and they're like, did you see what move he just did at what angle?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, get back to the fight!
It was a lot of that. But I think Z definitely did it worse. And I think Super tried to course correct it, but it didn't give characters time to shine.
Yeah.
The fights didn't feel as impactful.
And the story wasn't as well written.
Yeah.
No.
It's with the stakes thing again. There weren't really much stakes because of the Dragon Balls in Z. That whole issue.
Mm-hmm.
And then they tried to fix that in Super by removing the stakes completely.
Yeah.
And I just feel like there's a few plot holes in Super. So yet to be answered. Especially with who created the Super Dragon Balls and all that.
Yep.
Like this Ramo person or whatever, and who this like the original Super Saiyan God was. Or they were teasing something there as well.
I wouldn't consider them plot holes because it makes sense. They're just missing.
They're like threads that they've left. I don't know if they'll do anything with them, but we'll see.
But again, if it's entirely depends on what Toriyama wrote. Because again, I still think that he was just. I don't think he thought ahead.
No,
I just don't. I don't think he thought that well ahead. And if he did,
I think he just always thought what should happen next, and then what should happen next after that.
Yeah, in a kind of domino effect.
Yes.
But he never thought
I'm planning for the future.
He never thought this is the end.
Yeah.
How are we going to get to it? It was always what's going to happen next, and what happens after this, and what happens after this. It was a domino effect story, which sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. I personally prefer there's an end goal in sight.
How are
we getting there?
Yeah. But then again, that's actually not entirely true because the end goal. I like it when the end goal changes.
Yeah.
I like it when a story has an end goal.
Bro,
and then,
Super couldn't have any stakes, even if we wanted it to, because we know that it has to get to Oob.
Yeah.
There are no stakes at all.
That's it. What Oob is the end goal technically,
and we know they're going to be there for it. So there's no stakes.
What's going to happen next?
Do we know they're going to be there for it?
Presumably, if it's in any way similar to how it was in
because
NBC.
If they've retconned all of this shit so far,
well, at least know that Goku, Vegeta, Gohan, Piccolo will be there.
Why?
Because they are alive and are prevalent and were there in the original NBC.
But as you just said, they retconned.
Unless they completely rewrite End of
Yeah.
Which is possible.
I kind of hope doesn't happen, but
I don't. I don't want it to happen either.
Yeah.
But it's perfectly possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only difference with them rewriting it, in my eyes, is oh look, Beerus is in the crowd. Wow.
Yeah,
that's the only. Oh, Broly's there. Wow. That's it. That's all they're gonna change.
Yeah.
Broly just forever lives on Beerus's planet.
Yeah.
Broly's
granola is in the ground.
Beerus is long since retired, and Broly is the new god of destruction. Just watching.
No, Beerus is there casing out the new god of destruction that happens to be Oob.
There's a video. Who will be the next god of destruction of Universe 7?
Let us know in the comments below if you guys want to see that. I think we should probably
endless shit.
I'm sure there's quite a few things with Super and Z we've probably missed to compare. But this has gone long enough. But if we have missed anything, guys, then that's the opportunity to let us know down in the comments below. What are your thoughts on Z versus Super?
Get some discussion going.
I really want to hear your thoughts. I'm sure you guys probably have your own opinions on Super and Z as a whole.
Tell us why we're wrong. Why you hate us. Or you want us to die.
Do you agree or disagree with what we've had to say? Let us know in the comments below. Do let us know in the comments below as well if you guys want to see our next video, because I'll be down, because this was quite a fun discussion, not gonna lie. I would love to do a battle of the sequels next.
Yep.
If you guys want to see that, let us know in the comments below, whether it's GT versus Super, or Super versus Daima, or Daima versus GT. Let us know in the comments below. I'm sure we'll probably come back and do one anyway.
Yep.
Yeah.
But until then, guys, please subscribe so you don't miss out on those next few videos I've got coming up, and do drop a like if you have enjoyed our discussion on this. And until then, take care, have a fantastic day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.
Peace.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care.